Hi everyone, it's M.S.G. I hope you're doing well, and today I'm going to be doing my Emperor's Children Unit Review 11th edition series, where I will be looking at Infractors. So the video is going to be structured very similarly to the previous one with Tormentors, so as you can see here, that's the structure of the video. However, I will explain for those who are just listening in and not watching. It's a brief introduction to the unit with a bit of lore, so if you're trying to make a warband, then you can try and pick and choose which ones you want. Second will be a look at the unit's datasheets and the overall army rule, so this will involve explaining the abilities, showing the war gear options, points cost, unit composition, optimal loadouts, etc. I do need to mention for a disclaimer that obviously the balancing data slates are coming out every month now as opposed to every 3 months for the time being. When they go back to 3 months, these guides will probably maybe a bit inaccurate, but however I do think that Games Workshop tend to be pretty favourable when it comes to balancing Emperor's Children a majority of the time, so fingers crossed, hopefully these don't change. Third will be the purpose of the unit and its role in your army. Fourth will be the strengths of the unit and what the unit does well. 5 will be the weaknesses of the unit and what the unit does bad, anything in particular being its durability, utility, etc. 6 will be the best detachments the unit can be brought in and why I think that is the case. I will give examples as to stratagem support or anything like that. And finally, I will give an overall rating out of 10 and answer the question, is the unit worth bringing in your army? So, brief introduction to Infractors. What are Infractors? Consumed by an obsessive desire to experience sensation in all its forms, Infractors hurl themselves upon the foe with ecstatic glee. Their veins thick with an esoteric cocktail of combat stims, they are formidable and relentlessly cruel combatants. On the tabletop, Infractors are fast, melee shock troops used by the Emperor's Children to rush the enemy before they can react. As is typical of the servants of Slaanesh, the idea of self-preservation is laughable in comparison to the bliss of every unique sensation which the battlefield has to offer. Wielding dueling sabers, rapture lashes and power swords, they are known to target squad leaders and enemy champions in melee specifically. This is primarily done to prove their superiority in combat, although they thoroughly enjoy seeing the looks of fear their enemies exhibit after watching their leader be sadistically cut down before them. Essentially what the TLDR version is, these guys just get hooked up on a quite frankly ridiculous level of drugs and run at the enemy, kill as sadistically as they can, and then just run forward. So now that you come to think of it, actually, they're very similar to Khorne Berserkers in that regard, aside from the sadism. They're very much kill, move, kill, move, kill, move. They don't want to stay back and do anything. They're very much rush in. So here is their data sheet and their army rule. So just to briefly cover the army rule for those who are unaware, like you newer players, if you're trying to get into Emperor's Children. If your army is Emperor's Children, which it will be, the unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced or fell back, but when doing so, it cannot target a unit it was within engagement range at the start of the turn, and it cannot target a unit that was the target of another unit's charge or attack this phase. So for example, if you have 2 Noise Marine units, and you advance both and you want to shoot one unit, only one of them can do it, and it applies to charging as well. So if you advance 2 units and the first unit charges in, you can't charge the second unit into the same unit, unfortunately. So Infractors, they are 32mm base, so literally the exact same as a battle line unit of Space Marine. 7-inch move, toughness 4, 3 up armor, 2 wounds, 6 up leadership and 2 OC, which is nice. That extra OC is very, very good. They also all have a bolt pistol, other than the Obsessionist, which is the squad leader. Obviously, you're going to bring the plasma pistol because there's no other option. Now, this is where it gets good. So the melee weapons, you have 4 Infractors with dueling sabers, which are essentially just chain swords. So it's 4 attacks hitting on 3s, strength 4 minus 1 damage. The Obsessionist, who is the squad leader, can have a choice between a power sword or a rapture lash. So the rapture lash is the exact same profile, but is 6 attacks at strength 4 minus 1 damage. The power sword has 4 attacks at strength 5 minus 2 damage. They all have precision, which is, again, I will get onto why that's really, really good later on in the video. However, every single one of these has precision, so you don't need to worry about paying any command points for any stratagems to get it. Their abilities, they have Scout 6-inch, which is really nice. As I've said here, after every unit has been deployed and after any pre-command phase abilities have been conducted, the unit can move up to X amount of inches, so 6 in this circumstance. If all models in this unit have this and can embark within a transport, the transport will gain Scout 6. I will explain why this is really, really good later on. Second is the excessive assault, which is each time a mod. It's basically for those who would play Chaos Space Marines. It's just reroll ones to wound in melee, reroll all wounds if you're targeting a unit on an objective. It's just the exact same as a legionary. So again, really nice. It also comes with an icon of excess, so you can equip an Infractor with one. You normally want to keep that on your Obsessionist because obviously he has the better weaponry. And so basically, if you get a kill, excuse me, at the end of your shooting phase or fight phase, if the bearer's unit destroyed one or more enemy units that phase, the bearer's unit has to take a leadership test. If it's passed, you can gain a command point. So kill something, wipe the unit, pass a leadership test, you got a command point. To a maximum of one, might I add. You can't gain any more than one extra per battle round. They also have grenades, which is really nice because obviously the shooting's not great. They have a plasma pistol that's not really going to do much, especially into your higher toughness targets. So grenades are great into anything that you just need to do a couple of mortal wounds to. There are 5 models in the unit usually, which are 85 points, and if you want, you can bring 10 for 160, and they can be led by a Lord Exultant or a Sorcerer. For the optimal war gear, as you can see on the bottom right of the screen, it's a plasma pistol. Alternatively, you can bring the Rapture Lash. I personally bring the Power Sword because of the Strength 5 -2, so that extra pip of strength and AP is really nice. But again, a lot of people do bring the Rapture Lash because the Rapture Lash is better into hordes, and obviously you can roll it with the Dueling Sabers because it's the same stat line. However, I do need to mention this. If you are splitting attacks, the Rapture Lash is obviously a different weapon, so you can split it into a different unit if you overrun the fight phase when you kill something and then you can pile into something else and just hit that, which is again something you want to keep in mind. However, personally I run the Power Sword. It just depends what you're up against. But yeah, what is the purpose of this unit on the tabletop? I have said that they are damage and support, so it's mainly damage because obviously their ability is literally just you do more damage, you have the opportunity to get rerolls to wound. Very, very good with the sheer amount of attacks you're throwing out. So you have a lot of attacks are strength 4, so majority of the time you've got 20 to 22 attacks with AP 1 on average, which also means you'll be just shredding those hordes. But there are ways to increase your AP in different detachments, which is great because you do get +1 strength, +1 AP, -1 AP on the charge with Court of the Phoenician, and that strength 5 is very good on these guys, which I'll explain later. However, they are on their own, they're okay. If you're bringing a unit of 5, they're just okay. I don't think they're anything stand out. However, you are bringing these with a Lord Exultant. It's non-negotiable. These guys always go with a Lord Exultant. It's the best missile unit we have access to early on. To get those incredibly good alpha strikes and have your entire first wave of attacks just be, quite frankly, ridiculous. You do hit absurdly hard. Finally, the best to last is reliable precision melee. So this is often one of the reasons that they are brought, and it'll be elaborated on further, but essentially being able to just ignore a bodyguard unit and just snipe a character is quite frankly ridiculous, especially in 11th edition now, where you have to fast roll your character saves. You can't just go, right, here's 10 wounds, but my character's got a 3-up armor save and the other ones don't, so any 3s save the character. No, any time that they fail, it goes straight to the character now, which is really, really good. So what is good about the unit? So Scout 6-inch is just great. It's free movement on a fast army. You're not going to complain. You can react as well. So Scout move is, well, the potential of a Scout move is really, really good in the hands of a good player. So you can see if your opponent has line of sight on you or wants to set up a firing line. You can then play aggressively if you want to stop that from happening, or you can play more defensively if you feel like you need to, hide behind terrain or something like that. In 11th edition, it's a lot easier to do now with a hidden keyword, with a hidden rule. Sorry, when you jump on a piece of terrain, you can obviously, outside of detection range, most of the time you're not going to be shot within 15 inches. And if you're within between 15 to 20 inches of an Emperor's Children unit, it's not a good place. You do not want to be there. Other than that, though, like I say, you can bring the Lord Exultant with him, and it's obligatory. You do not really want to bring these guys with a Sorcerer. It's pretty bad. He also gets Scout, because of the Lord of the Host ability, which is again great. So you're not having to pay for an enhancement. to get Scout, like you would do in Chaos Space Marines, for example, with the Mark of the Hound, or the Chaos Cults, where you give it to either a Dark Apostle or a Dark Commune to get the Scout keyword, so a Cursed Cultist can Scout move, essentially. Rhinos love it as well, so like I said at the start, you can put them in a Rhino, which is very, very common. So a strategy that a lot of people who are already familiar with Emperor's Children will probably know how to do, but I will explain it for those who aren't. You get a unit of Infractors and your Lord Exultant, put them in a Rhino. Rhino moves Scout 6 inches, so you've got the free move essentially. You then disembark within 3 inches, wholly within 3 inches, sorry, of the Rhino. With the Infractor unit, and then you can move, advance, charge, do whatever you want. Then you get a Noise Marine unit, which is behind the Rhino. You advance them so they're wholly within 3 inches, embark within the Rhino. The Rhino can then move up, advance, shoot, do whatever it needs to. If you, for example, hypothetically speaking, most of the time you're not going to be doing this, but you put Noise Marines in the Rhino, drive up to somewhere behind terrain, have a decent line of sight, so you've got a T9 chassis protecting your Noise Marines with the firing deck as well for the Blastmasters. Then, if you feel like your opponent's overextended an important unit, you can just disembark the Noise Marines after the Rhino was advanced, and then you get you can shoot, essentially. Because obviously the Rhino can now disembark, the Rhinos for Emperor's Children you can disembark after they've advanced, and the Noise Marines can still have the capacity for shooting after they've disembarked, which is really, really helpful, and it's a lot of shooting for Noise Marines. Back to the Infractors though, they are well costed in my opinion. I think 85 points for a 5-man unit is fantastic. They are slightly cheaper than the Chaos Space Marine Legionaries at 90 points for a squad of 5, but they don't hit as hard. However, I do think that being able to precision melee a lot from base kit, you don't need to pay for it, is just really, really good. 2 OC per model on a battle line unit is just fairly simple. I'm not really going to get into that. So the Icon of Excess gives chances for a command point regeneration, or generation rather. As mentioned in the Tormentor review, if you haven't watched that, please do. The Icon of Excess can generate you more command points over the course of the game, which is nice, especially early on, because you want to compile, at least in my experience, the games that I have won, I have compiled a lot of command points based on how these guys move, so you don't need to worry about, I don't have a command point for Heroic Intervention, or I don't have a command point for, whatever stratagem I need to use. I've got them all saved up and banked up because I've been using these guys to generate them. Again, they're not as hard hitting as the Infractor Lord Exultant combo Tormentors, however, thankfully, Infractors and Lord Exultant are incredible and can kill a lot. There is a weakness to this in particular though, the Icon. It has got weaker, which I'll explain in the next slide, so I'll continue now. The fast and great skirmishers and chaff killers, so like I said earlier, you've got 7-inch moves, so you're already slightly faster than Space Marines with advance and charge, advanced shoot and charge rather. On a fragile unit is great because it allows you to dictate the engagement range in a majority of circumstances. Your opponent doesn't really want to get near you with these guys around, especially because you are just so quick and you are able to just get in the face really, really fast. In addition, sometimes if you're playing like Kotri, for example, you're going to want your opponent to move block you, mainly because you can just throw these guys in there, kill these like really easy to kill units like Guardsmen or an infiltrating scout squad to just body block you, and you've got your first tally, which is great. Finally, precision melee in 11th is just ridiculous. So I will be doing a dice demonstration in a second, but I will explain. So while killing a character won't count as killing a unit anymore, so in 10th edition you used to be able to get 2 chances if you wiped a unit, because you'd kill the character with the Infractors and then you'd kill the rest of the unit with the Lord Exultant or the Obsessionist if his attacks have not gone through. You would get chances to do that, but now you only get the 1 because you have to wipe the unit due to the bodyguard ruling. The character is part of the unit fully, it's not just attached on. So the precision, being able to get that character out of a unit and kill it, is just a fantastic thing to do. Common tactic I do is just throw every single attack into the character and let the Lord Exultant deal with the rest of the unit. Very, very rarely do I do the opposite, or do I just throw attacks out there unless I'm, hitting like a tank or anything like that, where it's just 1 unit and I don't need to worry about a character. On average with the Lash, it's 22 attacks at strength 4 -1/1 damage with lethal hits because of the Lord Exultant's ruling, and rerolling 1s to wound, full rerolls to wound on an objective. So, for example, a very, very common unit I seem to see is the Orokin with Warriors, because obviously Orokin gives them the 4-up invul. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a live demonstration. So I'm going to get some dice ready. We're going to do a reason as to why picking off the character is really good. This is especially prevalent when you're dealing with a unit like Orokin, or a model like Orokin rather, where the leader gives the unit an invul, which is something you really want to get rid of. So Space Marine Librarian, for example, I still think they do that, but with Orokin I know for a fact he definitely gives their unit a 4-up invul. So we've got, we'll do the Rapture Lash first from the Obsessionist, so hitting on 3s. 6s are sustained and lethals, so we got 3 6s and we didn't miss a single one. That's an incredibly good roll. Wow, okay. Why can't that happen when I'm in a game? I don't know. So we've got 9 attacks overall, with 3 of them being lethal hits. Strength 4, toughness 4. Wow, we wounded every single one other than 1. Let's see if we can get that one. No, we failed. So we failed 1. That's re-rolling 1s to wound, by the way, because most of the time you are going to get full re-rolls, but I'm not going to do it here. Minus 1 AP, so 4-up invul. He has passed... My god, he's passed all of them but 1. I could not have made that rule any better. Any rolls better, sorry. Holy shit. So he's took 1 wound. That's never really going to happen. You don't tend to spike invuls like that often. So for the sake of fairness, I'm going to re-roll that because that's very much an outlier. There we go, that's more like it. So he's failed 1, 2, 3. He's failed half, which is about average. So he's on 4 wounds. Now we're going to do our... In fact, no, I'm not going to waste your time. The fact that you can... In fact, actually, yeah, because the damage will spill over if that's the case. So we'll get 4. Just need 16. Just give me 2 seconds. Right, so these are the 16 Dueling Saber attacks. So same start line, so 4 attacks each. Hit on 3s. Lethal hits on 6s. We got a decent chunk of lethals. That's 4 lethal hits. This is without a detachment rule, by the way. So obviously, if you were playing Peerless Bladesman, oh, we got another 6. If you're playing Peerless Bladesman, 6s would be sustained as on top of that. So you know what, for argument's sake, yeah. So we've got 5 6s. So that's an extra 5 attacks. I'm rolling really hot today. 4s because toughness 4. So that is a grand total of, we only dropped 4 wounds, which is that's pretty good. That is a lot of wounds. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 wounds out of 16 attacks, which is pretty good considering we got a lot of sustained hits as well. 4s because it's 4-up invul. Okay, so Orokin is dead, so we take 1 out, and it's AP minus 1, so it would be 5s that you need now. So that's 1, 2, 3 that they've passed for the Warriors. I think Warriors are 4 up base, I think. I'll have to double check. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 11 wounds, so we've killed Orokin and 10 Warriors with just the Infractor squad, which is quite frankly ridiculous. We do have to keep in mind that is with sustained and lethal hits because of the Peerless Bladesman rule, which is the most common detachment that I play. Obviously that could be a bit lower depending on what your detachment is. So if you have Court, for example, you'd be wounded on 3s instead of 4s, and then re-rolling the 1s, so you're more than likely going to get damage through there. An AP2, they just get a 6-up save. But yeah, that's the case in point. These guys hit very, very hard into middling strength targets. Weaknesses though, low strength attacks. So while I was just saying they hit hard into middling strength targets, the keywords there, middling strength. Anything higher than toughness 5, you're going to struggle because of the sheer amount of needs to wound on 5s. Like, yeah, being able to re-roll all wounds on an objective and 1s to wound off an objective is decent, but you're going to need your Lord Exultant to do the heavy hitting here. So the Lord Exultant is a very, very good leader to do such a damage primarily, but in this circumstance, you're gonna want to have the lethal hits from the Lord Exultant, which helps your Infractors punch up. Thankfully, this unit is almost always going to be brought. I've literally never ever seen a Infractor unit be brought with a Lord without being brought in a Lord Exultant squad. Sorry, a squad of Infractors being brought with a Lord Exultant. But it does lead on to my next point. They are quite poor on their own, and there's a reason why. If you want a skirmishing unit that can do actions, Tormentors are just better because of the sticky objectives. Granted, the melee is pretty bad in comparison to Infractors. Infractors are always going to hit harder and do more damage, but you do have the virtue of range, and you also have the virtue of precision melter gun if you do, get close. Anything the Infractors can do is kind of nullified as well, because with an Infractor squad, if you had a lone 5-man squad, put them on an objective, you don't get sticky objectives, whereas with Tormentors, you can put them on an objective, move them to screen, because you don't need to worry about the objective because you've just sticked it. Icon of Excess is weaker. I'm just going to briefly touch over this because I've just mentioned it in the last slide. You do not get the kills on the characters counting towards any kind of tally. So Coterie, you don't get it anymore. Icon of Excess, you don't get it anymore. You have to kill the entire unit to benefit from getting the option to do leadership test and get a command point, unfortunately. Finally, they are Space Marines at the end of the day, so while they are very tanky into certain things, so like 0 AP fire, bolt guns, that kind of thing, you are going to struggle into some armies that just know how to deal with Space Marines. So any kind of like AP1 ignores cover, AP2 ignores cover, 2 damage, it's just going to really, really punch through you. Flamers are very good, so you AP1, AP2 flamers are very good into. Granted, they are great into hordes, but they're even like very, very potent into Space Marines, especially 2 damage flamers. They're incredibly nasty. So what are the best detachments for the unit? I'll explain briefly. So again, this video is going on a bit longer than I thought it would, but the unit is pretty good in pretty much every single detachment. These are a very, very solid workhorse unit, so you're not going to be like, oh, my Infractors are bad in, rapid evisceration because I am back from a transport. Rapid evisceration is probably one of the worst ones for these guys, primarily because these guys already always have reroll ones to wounded melee. You're not really going to care about ranged output for the reroll ones to wound. You can get access to reroll ones to wound in Coterie, which is a far better detachment than rapid evisceration. While rapid evisceration off the bat is better, because you get reroll ones to hit and wound without having to get up to 3 kills. With Coterie, you only need to get 1 kill to get reroll ones to hit on everything. You don't need to disembark from a transport, you just get that. Again, Mercurial Host as well. Mercurial is a very weird generalist attachment I don't really know much about. All I know is you can reroll your advance rolls. It's okay. Like it's nice if you're like new into the game, or you're notoriously unlucky for advanced rolls. You always roll a 1, you get the chance to re-roll it. Some pretty okay stratagem support in as well for Mercurial Host, but it doesn't offer you any melee benefits or increase your damage, which is unfortunately very relevant when you're playing Emperor's Children. If you feel like that you can make something of it though, then feel free. So like for example, if you wanted to play a Mercurial Host with Frenzied Host, or play it with a different 1 detachment point costing detachment, then you can do. So your Infractors now strength 5, because like I said here, if you advance or fall back, you get +1 strength on your weapons, so that's weapons. So you can also do that with bolt pistols. So funnily enough, if you fall back from a unit of Space Marines at T4, you can now wound them on 3s with bolt pistols, which is it's there if you need it. But the main reason as to why is because you're going to be bringing it with Court of the Phoenician, which gives you the +1 strength and +1 AP. So your Infractors will be strength 6 minus 2 AP, 1 damage on average, which is very, very good for an 85-point unit. You're now wounding Plague Marines on 4s. Court of the Phoenician, we'll just get it over and done with. If you want damage, pick Court of the Phoenician. So strength 5 minus 2 AP, 1 damage for your dueling sabers. Very good into 1 wound infantry, which rely on armor saves or forces things to the invulnerable. So for example, if you're fighting Terminators, Instead of saving on a 3-up, they're saving on a 4-up now, which is their invulnerable save, which is very, very good. Granted, you probably might not kill any of them because it is a 4-up, but it's better to force them to a 4-up and have the chance to do more damage than it is to just have them on a 3-up. It's also a lot better into vehicles, so you get the lethal hits from the Lord Exultant, so any AP2 is going to be bringing them to a 4-up or a 5-up, depending on what you're up against. Again, making that armor save worse is always going to help, because you're just going to potentially get a couple, maybe even more than you think, through to kill or severely wound something. Also gets +1 to wound into T4 targets, so like I said earlier, if you're rolling into Necrons, a lot of T4 stuff, like Warriors, or running into other Space Marines, you're wounding them on 3s now, and that AP2 forces your Warriors, Necron Warriors to, I think, a 6-up save. Eldar don't get it either, so your Eldar get a 6-up save now, which is very, very nice, because I don't like dealing with Eldar. And they are all 1-wound infantry most of the time, so you will shred them, quite frankly. I think Emperor's Children are very good into Eldar. The stratagem support is pretty lackluster though, unfortunately. So you get -1 to wound in the shoot in a fight phase, or you get a D6 surge move after an enemy is shot for a command point. The big one is re-rolling hits and wounds against a character unit. So being able to fully re-roll your hits and your wounds and lethal hits is ridiculously good if you're trying to get that, like, if you really want someone dead, that's the way to do it. Granted, it is 2 command points. My personal favourite we'll get on to now, so again, Peerless Bladesman is just, in my opinion, my favourite. I absolutely adore Peerless Bladesman. Granted, you don't get any support for your Noise Marines, but this isn't about Noise Marines, this is about Infractors. So, again, Strength 4 -1/1 is pretty bad until you, pretty okay, sorry, it's not bad. But getting lethal hits and sustained hits just gets the damage up, like, ridiculously high. You can get -1 to hit in melee now with Death's Parry, fight on death for 2 command points, charge into an opponent which fell back for 2 command points, within 6 inches of an Emperor's Children unit rather. If it fell back, let's say you've got an enemy that wants to fall back and charge a different unit in Emperor's Children, you can then out of sequence charge into them for 2 command points, which is potentially game changing. You force a battle shock test at -1 to every unit within 6 inches after killing an enemy unit. And my personal favourite, Pro Bladesman, increase your AP by 1. It's just really, really nice to have that increased AP, so AP2 is where things start getting very scary. Last but not least is Coterie of the Conceited. This is the one where you unfortunately can't synergize, because everyone knows how good Coterie is. It's a 3 detachment point 1 for a reason. If you manage to get the tally to 5, you've got sustained and lethal hits on 6s, and 5s if you get it to 7. You're also very likely to get access to rerolls 1s to hit, and don't really care about reroll 1s to wound. So as soon as you get that first tally point, these guys are going to hit a lot harder and a lot more reliably. Probably the best stratagem support in my opinion. So full rerolls to hit for a command point in combat is just ridiculously good. A lot of armies would love that. Ignore modifiers to hit and wound rolls, so any kind of -1 to wound or -1 to hit is just, nope, you haven't hit you on whatever my weapon skill is. So Death Guard do not like that, because a very good Death Guard player into Emperor's Children is going to go, oh, you're -1 ballistic skill, -1 to your weapon skill. Now you still hit on 3s, you don't need to worry about that. Force the enemy to attack your unit. As I mentioned in the Tormentors video, it's probably better for those guys because they're an isolated squad, whereas if you have Fulgrim, let's say, and you charge into the Lion, Fulgrim hits the Lion, doesn't kill him, and then the Lion wants to hit back and potentially kill Fulgrim. You can then go, no, for a command point, you're now hitting my 5-mana Infractor unit, so have fun with that. And finally, you get access to a 6-up Feel No Pain against mortals. 6-up Feel No Pain, and 4-up if it's a mortal wound. Just really strong, especially when you're dealing with, grenade spam or any kind of like Volkite weaponry. That gives you, dev wounds, for example, any kind of weapons like that. And then you get to reduce incoming AP by 1 in the shooting or fight phase. Just armor of contempt, basically, which is just, again, it's armor of contempt. It's just great. Overall rating, though, I give them a 10 out of 10. I think these are a staple in a majority of Emperor's Children list. You'll see a lot, maybe at least 2 units are Infractors with Lord Exultants, mind you. If the Lord Exultant didn't exist or couldn't be ran with these guys, these would severely be a lot lower. But I think they're very well balanced. No one's going to cry bullshit because you've killed them with Infractors. They're just an incredibly good, solid workhorse unit. You know what you're getting. and they help your big, heavy hitting infantry hit even harder. You could argue that they're ranked lower or higher. Again, this is my personal opinion, but I genuinely never leave an entire list without having access to at least 1 or 2 squads of Infractors, mainly due to the synergy for the Lord Exultant. So the melee is not stand out by any stretch of the imaginations, and cousins in the other legions hit harder. They can reliably kill hordes and synergize really well with the Lord Exultant. They also act as a bodyguard, so at the very least, if your Lord Exultant's got 10 wounds between him and potentially dying, which is always nice. Again, the abilities from the Infractors are what brings the damage up for the Lord Exultant, is not the Infractor's damage itself. The Scout is very, very nice as well, because you just get free movement. You're not going to complain. But yeah, other than that, I think these guys are exceptionally good. I think that you should bring them in pretty much every list. Thank you for watching. If you've got this far, I appreciate your patronage. Thank you very much. If you feel like I am worth your time and you have learned something or wish to visit the video again, please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and if you feel like you want to, then please share it with your friends. I'm always happy to talk with people in the comments as well if you feel like you've agreed or disagreed with any of my points, or if you feel like there's something that I should have changed, please let me know. Other than that, though, I will leave you to it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I want you to stay healthy, stay sharp, and always remember, praise the dark gods. Cheers, guys.